let go of all of the thinking, oh, how is this going to do? Are people going to like this? Is a label going to want to sign this? Like, I don't care anymore about that. Really, I want to put out stuff that I like, that I would play at a show. And like, then you can stand behind something. If it doesn't stream well, who cares? Are you proud of it? I think that's what really matters. And I've put out songs that I'm not proud of. And I've put out songs where I'm like, they didn't do very well from a commercial perspective, but like, I'm proud of them. I play them. They're my shit. You know what I mean?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guest has been exploding in the progressive and techno scene over the past few years, racking up tens of millions of plays on his Spotify and playing shows all over the country. He left behind a promising career at one of the biggest talent agencies in the world, choosing to pursue his own dreams instead, and that choice has definitely been paying off. This is Darkheart.
Woo! Hi, everybody.
What's up, brother?
Nick, how have you been?
Oh man, I've been good. I've been really good lately. I'm in a good fucking zone, bro. Really good energy. Just in a great place, man. How about you? How have you been?
Man, busy, but also in a really great place. It's been an amazing year, and you always have a positive energy. You've always had that. I don't know if, I guess we have to tell the people, we go back pretty far.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, I've known you a long time, and you've always had this great energy, very positive, uplifting, which I think you have to have in this business, because otherwise there's too many obstacles, it's just too hard.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do most of the time. And I've also learned that I don't have to be positive all the time. And sometimes I'm in a shit fucking mood, and I've learned to like own that way better. Like if I'm not doing good, I'm not going to pretend like I'm not, but I'm in a good zone right now. And I appreciate that, man. We do go way back. Was it 2015? Is that what we were saying before we got on here? Was that when
2015? Yeah, we met in 2015.
Cool.
Doesn't seem like that long ago, but I guess it was.
That's almost like a fucking decade. That's eight years. So it's quite a while ago. A lot has happened.
2 colleges.
Yeah.
2 high schools.
we have doctorates now in fucking
we do.
Music industry. I am excited to dive in with you because I haven't really seen you much since then. And there have been a few artists. I really love this when this happens, when I'm like, I see you at the beginning of your career, and then it's almost like I blink and I just look at I'm on Instagram one day, and then I just see somebody playing in front of a huge crowd, and I look at their Spotify and they're like blowing up, and I'm like, oh shit. Okay, they've been working. They've been getting after it. And I feel like you're one of those people. I just kind of looked up. I'm like, oh yeah, he's killing it, man. So for me, I'm really excited to just catch up because it's been a long time. But also, I'm really excited for you to share your story, because when I met you, you had just left this really amazing, successful career at William Morris, one of the biggest. You're at WME, right? At William Morris, right? One of the biggest talent agencies in the world. And you were like, you know what? Fuck this awesome job. I'm going to go pursue my dream and my passion. And that just takes a lot of balls. And so I'm excited to hear about that. And I'd love to start our conversation there. Tell us about your job at William Morris, what you were doing there, and how you finagled your way into Hollywood.
So I'll give you the abbreviated version because there's a lot of stuff along the way. But basically, when I was, the way I first got into entertainment in general is when I was in college, I was promoting shows. So basically I was like a middle booker before. Now it's sort of ubiquitous. I mean, they have like Beat Gig, and I do fraternity shows all over the country, and it seems way easier to access people than it was back when I was doing it. So like, we would just call people off MySpace, or like, look up and coming artists that we liked. And I mean, I guess that'll show you my age, but yeah, back in the MySpace music days, it was like people would post their numbers and we would just call them and try to get them to come to our school. We tried to deal with agents to a degree, but it was very hard. And obviously you can't ensure quality very well if you're an agent. So I understand where they were coming through as well. It's like, how do we know you have a good speaker setup and you're going to make the artists look amazing? But we did. We managed to get a lot of really cool acts. Back in those days, I think who did we get? We got like, Wiz Khalifa, Mike Posner, the guy who I was in business with. He ended up working with him for some years after college. So, we were booking a lot of like rappers and DJs at the time. And that's sort of like, what kind of started me thinking about music in the back of my head. But, I'm from the Midwest. I was born and raised in Indiana, went to school in Ohio. And the general consensus over there, and this is not a knock, it's like a very hardworking sort of Midwestern attitude. But if you don't get a paycheck every 2 weeks, you don't have a job. You know what I mean? Like, it's not normal to do that. You need to do something that you can actually have a respectable income off of. So I was like, okay, so, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I was trying to figure out, like, I tinkered around with production back then, but it didn't seem viable. And the internet didn't even have as much information as it does today. Like, DAWs weren't what they are. There was no splice. Sample packs, I don't even know where you begin back then. You know what I mean? Like,
no YouTube channels that were just explaining how to do everything, right?
Correct. There's no YouTube channels. There's nobody, like, it just wasn't something that you just could hop on the internet and learn.
No Headliner Mindset podcast.
There's no Headliner Mindset podcast. No, podcasts weren't even really back then. Nobody was listening to podcasts. So
not at all.
So a lot was different. But then, so one summer I ended up, my mom found this like internship program in Hollywood because she knew I had always wanted to be in the movie business and entertainment, whatever. And I applied and ended up getting it. And I worked for this producer, these producing partners, Ralph Winter and Terry Botwick. Terry came from CBS. He'd been an exec there for a long time, and then he started this company. And then Ralph was a producer. He did like the Godzilla in '98 and Wolverine and stuff. So
these are like movie producers.
Yeah, one of them. Yes, it's not music producers. This is all movie business stuff. So this is when I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this movie business thing out. I went to LA for the summer by myself and just like had this internship. And so I would be helping out with assistant duties. And I don't know how many people actually know this, but in Hollywood, everybody's rolling calls all the time. You're calling people all the time. Like, that's how information bartering, that sort of thing. And assistants are almost always on these calls. So like, you are dialing out for your boss. And when you call out to someone, you sit on the entire call. So I was on all these phone calls, which is new to me. I'd never done that before. I remember being on these phone calls, I heard, I think it was Ralph's agent over at ICM at the time. And I heard him talking, and like, I was like, I don't know what an agent does, but this guy knows everything. It sounds cool. Like, maybe I want to do this. And I just got it in my head by the end of that summer. I'm like, I'm going to be an agent. That, I can do, I can be in the business. I can be creative. I can still, kind of accomplish what I want to accomplish, but then also have that paycheck every 2 weeks, have like a real job.
Yeah. And at this time, was still a part of you that was interested in music, or was this like,
well, yeah, I mean,
not really
the whole
an
time,
idea yet?
Like, it wasn't like I was just like, no, I'm going to leave all that behind. To me, it was just like, this is a great opportunity. This seems like the right thing for me to do at the time. I love the movie business. I want to be involved in Hollywood. I really want to do this. And I still was producing and tinkering around, but I don't think I knew at the time that the deeper and deeper you get into Hollywood, especially in like an agency, which is incredibly, incredibly difficult. And it requires a lot of hours.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle.
I don't think I realized you don't really have hobbies. So, but I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, you don't have a life.
No, you do, but your life is this. It's like, and they are the same. Similarly, I mean, as a producer, as an artist, I don't really have a life. You know what I mean? My life is my work and simultaneous.
Sure.
Anyway, so 100%. So I tried to apply to agencies when I was in my senior year of school. And obviously they're like, you don't live in LA. You come from this weird little school in Ohio, University of Dayton. We don't know what that is. So I got rejected from all the agencies. And I was just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm moving to LA. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go in their lobby and give them my resume every day. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to just move out and do it. So I did. So I moved out the day after I graduated, and I lived all over the place. I was living in like a frat house at UCLA. I rented a room from this lady in the hills. Like, I was bouncing all over the place. And so I basically like ran out of money. I had my savings from the promoting business, but just, it's LA is extremely expensive. It was back then, even more so now. And I had sort of like ended up relegating myself to like, okay, I haven't quite gotten in yet, but I can just get another job with my degree, and then I'll wait them out and I'll keep pounding at the door. So I'm on this second interview for this crappy telecom company where they just like schlock garbage telecom on random, like you do cold calls. Like I was walking around some strip mall in Orange County, and I got a call from this headhunter, a guy that a temp agency that I had signed up with like weeks and weeks ago. And like really old guy was like trying to help me get a job. He's like, I'm going to get you a job at William Morris. I was like, yeah, I've heard that before, but call me when it happens. Anyway, he calls me. He's like, hey, you have an interview in 2 hours at William Morris in Beverly Hills. And I was like, man, I'm on a second interview for this job. Like, I don't know if I can't leave this. Like, this is going to be my money. I literally had $54.54 in my bank account. No exaggeration.
Wow.
So I was like, I need this. I need to get a job like now. If I don't know what I'm going to do. So I was like, I go, can we move the interview, whatever? He's like, this is not a man who changes interviews with, mailroom kids. So you do this interview or I'm not getting you another interview there. And I was like, okay. So anyway, I basically like blow this other second interview that I was on to get out of it. And then to go up to what was then WME. They just merged with Endeavor. So there's a big merger going on. And actually, I ended up, the guy he got me an interview with was the head of the music HR at the time. So I drive up, I stop at a FedEx, I pick up my resumes, and then I go to this interview, like make it in the nick of time. And he just, this guy just grills me. Like, and I couldn't finish a sentence. And obviously what they're doing is they're trying to see your bedside manner. They want to see like if you can handle a bit of a beating. And he gave me a bit of a beating in that meeting. But then at the end of it, he's like, how do you think you did? And I was like, well, truthfully, not very well, because you wouldn't let me finish sentences. Like, look, nobody's going to work harder than me. I don't think I did that great, but you give me a chance. I can do this, whatever. And then he just like cuts me off again. He's like, can you start Monday? And I was just like, man, it was genuinely like a transformative moment in my life. I just went down to my car and like, I got emotional. I was just staring at my steering wheel. I was like, I did it. I got in.
Yeah.
And I started as a temp on Monday, and then, I worked really hard, and by Friday I had an offer letter from them. And that's sort of what started me in WME.
Yeah. And I want to pause you right there, because there's already so much great stuff in this story about having a goal, having a big, scary goal, especially when, you're coming from a town and a culture where people are just kind of working the 9 to 5 and maybe not, necessarily pursuing these big dreams. I'm curious, like, what was driving you? What was it about you and what was going on in your mind where you're just like, yo, I'm going to fucking pack my bags and move to LA and, put everything on the line?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I don't, if I'm honest, I don't really know what it is. I've always I don't really know what has made me like this. Like, I can't really figure it out. I've always kind of been like this. I've been very stubborn and hard-headed. And when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, even to my own detriment. Sometimes, like, I will do it. I guess like the best way to explain it would be, I'm sure you've heard the expression that, if someone tells me now, I want to be a music producer, I want to be an actor, I want to be a writer, most things creative where you're kind of an artist. There's that saying, if you can do anything else, do that. If you have to do this, if you have to be an artist, then it's right for you. If you can do literally anything else, do that other thing, because this is just not, it's a inherently silly career. It is. It's like, and like, I'm not knocking it, and, I do it, but that's what it is. I don't think I could do anything else. I think like this, I've been in entertainment my entire life. I've been gravitating to it since I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, I had ideas for movies. When I was a little kid, like, I wanted to perform. I wanted to create stuff. I just couldn't help it. I was constantly making up stories. I used to tell my little brother, we slept on bunk beds. I used to tell him stories every night. I just completely made them up. So I
Yeah.
don't know, like I can't help it. It's just like something that's been in me for a really long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. It's just part of you. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Good shit. Okay. So now you get the job. You're at WME. You made it. How long were you there?
So I was there for, I don't know, the entire like 6 years ish. So kind of what happened was I started on the music side. I was in the music mail room, if you will. It was basically, it's called Music Central. You do ticket counts and boring stuff like that. But I ended up moving over to the movie side. They were kind of separate at the time. I think they kind of still are, because the reality is being a music agent is substantially different from being a movie agent.
Totally.
Like music and movie agent are actually really different jobs. People think that they're similar, but booking territories and covering shows and being an RA for someone is dramatically different from covering a whole studio on the movie side and repping actors and building them up and dealing with casting directors and, you know, there's just they're vastly different jobs. So I moved over to the movie side and did the mailroom again. Basically, eventually I got a desk, and then what you do, for anyone who doesn't know how an agency works, is you start in the mailroom or Music Central, and then once a desk opens up, one of the agent's assistants' jobs opens up, you vie for that spot. And so I ended up getting a desk on the movie side, and I worked for my first boss for a little while. And you stay on desks for various amounts of time, usually anywhere from like 6 months to a year. And then in some cases of like bigger desks, if you get up to like the CEO level, which I eventually did, I ended up being on that desk for a little bit longer. And then I got promoted to agent afterwards. So that's like the abbreviated version. I work for a bunch of different agents. You get to see their different businesses. It's a very entrepreneurial career path because everyone kind of runs their business a bit differently, and everyone has different types of clients. Some people have more like auteur actors that work less and go for Oscars or are very selective. Other people have like these massive commercial movie stars that you know are down to do all
Yeah.
kinds of different movies. So it's just you get to run the gamut.
As an agent, what kind of people were you representing when you got to the agent role?
Once I first got promoted, and I wasn't in there long enough, like what you basically want to do is you get promoted, and then you have a number of people that you were kind of already working with from maybe your last boss. So my last boss was Patrick Weitzel. He was the co-CEO at the time, and he has a ton of big actor clients. He put me on a few teams. I also had some younger people that I was working with, but then other agents, when you come in, you're a part of that department, and you have to be like you have to be a team player. So like if a partner needs help and they want to bring you in on the team, oftentimes it's not always an ideal situation. It may be someone very difficult. It may be someone who needs to break still and they need someone else on the team to constantly talk to that person. There's some actors that need more phone calls and more like, scripts being sent through, and then some who are just incoming call business, as you'd say.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was put on a bunch of teams, and then I also had people that I had been working with from before when I was, on my last desk. And, it's a very much a apprenticeship model. So you watch your boss do it, and that's how you learn to do it. So in the meantime, a lot of times the goal is you should be building relationships with casting directors. You should be building relationships with studio people and producers and all the
Yeah.
above. So that's what I had been doing. And it was not like, it's supposed to be somewhat of a smooth, it's always difficult getting promoted, but it's supposed to be a smoother transition. And they're supposed to kind of like, watch your genesis to get to the point where you're ready to do that job. So if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then at what point did you decide you didn't want to do it anymore? Obviously you decided to pursue this music thing. I'm curious if that voice was just getting louder. Like what inspired you to get into music and leave that behind?
Over the years of doing it, I realized two things. Number one, no job, like this whole idea of you're quote unquote safe or you have a realistic job, whatever, not true in entertainment in any capacity. Like, let me use this as an example. If you're someone who's, wants to be an accountant, which is a great job, God bless if that's what you're doing, you go out there, you try to get a job as an accountant. If it's not working out for you, but you're a hard worker and you're good at your job, people will go, oh, this is a solid person. Hey, Dave wants to be an accountant. He's a solid guy. and people will almost be like, we should give him a shot. He's owed that much at least. You know, people, when they see someone who's out of work, but they're a hard worker and they want to work, people naturally feel for that person and they want to see you do well. That's not true in entertainment. And in the agency business, oh, I want to be an agent. Like I work really hard, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. If you don't make friends, or if you make an enemy of the wrong person, you're out. It's not fair. Sorry. Goodbye.
Yeah,
and there's been plenty of agents, and I'm not giving you any information that isn't publicly out there. You can go look up agents who have been run completely out of Hollywood. It's a thing. It happens. They were really good at their jobs. They pissed off some people, gone. And like, that's just the way it works. So I realized, number one, this is not a safe job. It's not necessarily even safer. It's a more consistent job than doing what I do now, but like, it's not safe, quote unquote. So I realized, number one, the whole idea that, oh, you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. That's a real job. Like, yeah, kind of, but like, it's not like being a lawyer and accountant where it's a little more, as I would say, like fair to a degree. Like entertainment's generally an unfair business. People hate when I say this. I've tweeted this before and people are like, I'm like, stop complaining about it. Either do it, be in it and love it, or just like, and shut up. Or like, if you're going to complain, no one's ever gotten anywhere from complaining. People are like, we should be able to call this out. We should be able to talk about this. And I'm like, yeah, you can, but no one's going to feel for you on this. They're just going to look at you and be like, come back down to earth with the rest of the population. Maybe you're not cut out for this. And that was one thing I realized. And then the second thing I realized was I was building other people's ideas. You know, like I was so close to it. I was like this close, and I was working for those people. And I loved it, by the way. Don't get me wrong. Like, honestly, I loved being an agent. I think I was good at it. So, you know, I guess you'd have to talk to my old colleagues to get an objective opinion, but I think I was good at it. And I liked doing the job. And for me, it was just too, you know, that voice became unavoidable. To use your vernacular, the voice became unavoidable at that point. I was like, you're doing this stuff for other people, but you have ideas yourself. You want to do things yourself. I'm creative at heart. Mm-hmm. I want to generate the ideas. I don't want to just be someone else facilitating, you know, the ideas of my clients necessarily. So it was a hard decision for me, and I decided it was honestly out of the blue. I mean, you could ask my old bosses, but it was out of the blue. They were both not expecting it. And, you know, I love, like, so many of my friends are still there. So many of my friends are agents. I honestly, like, I do not regret doing that route at all. I have like dear friends, and my mentors are all there too. And like, I honestly think it gave me a perspective that's irreplaceable. So I have so much love for everybody that I worked with at WME. Yeah. I can't even tell you. As the years have gone on, it's gotten even stronger because they kept rocking with me, you know?
Take me back to when you actually made that decision. What pushed you over the line? What got you to actually make that call?
Well, the support that I had in my life was one thing. I've been married for a long time, for my age. And my wife was she was like, you got to do this for you. You know, like, yeah. I know she's like, I know you're going to be fine. I mean, I had gotten to that point at a relatively young age, and it was awesome. And I was doing well. And, you know, like I said, I had so many friends there. It was a hard decision to make, but like I said, if you can do anything else, do that other thing. I could not. And it eventually, you know, I had been thinking about it for a while, but it just got to the point where I could see the next 10 years and I had to make a decision, because you don't have forever to do this. People say there's always time. Maybe, but it depends on what you want out of life, and there's always time. But if you know now that you want to do something else, I find that gut instinct is not something you should ever ignore. Like, gut instinct is almost always 100%. I've never had a situation where my gut was telling me something strongly, and then I ended up regretting following it. And there's been times I've gone against it and been like, what was I doing? I should have just done this the way I thought I was supposed to do it in the first place. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if, you know, whatever, if you believe in God or the universe, a higher power, or whatever, but what you're supposed to do is going to eventually hit you, whether you want it to or not. I think if you listen to that voice. So
1,000%, man. I talk about that a lot. It's like, I personally feel like I've always been very connected to my intuition. Some people might call that God or the universe or some higher power. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm sort of stepping into that belief a little bit more, that there is some universal force out there that is speaking to you, and it's showing you where to go. And it's giving you these little universe taps on your shoulder saying, hey, go over here, go check this thing out. And, you know, either you listen to it or you don't. And I've been, I think, very fortunate to have listened to it pretty well along the way. And like you said too, also not listen to it, and then you learn from those moments too, probably just as much. So yeah, man, I definitely resonate with that. I'm glad that you listen to it, And so let's talk about your journey as an artist, because I met you when you were probably fairly early on in that
No, you
journey.
met
I
me
think
right away. You met
yeah,
me literally the first move I made was to go to Icon
yeah,
right after
yeah,
because I knew that I was behind on because I've been tinkering around, but man, like I was saying, you can't have hobbies. Like you got to be all the way in, and it wouldn't have been fair to the people that were relying on me at the agency to continue like to make the hobby a bigger part of my life. It just wouldn't have been fair to them. I wouldn't have been fulfilling my obligations, and like I'm an honorable person, and I felt like that eventually this was going to collide. So yeah, when I first got out, I knew I was behind on production, and I knew I was going to have to do 10,000 hours in the studio to get really good. So the first move I made was to go to Icon to catch up, basically, and
yeah.
be around other people who were, doing the same thing that I was doing.
You were at Icon just for what, a couple quarters though? What, 2 quarters or?
Yes, I think I was there for, I don't remember it's been 8 years, but
Yeah.
I didn't go through the whole thing, but I got through, it's very production heavy, especially in the beginning. And I did that. And, that's when we met. And honestly, I say this, like, I didn't have a big plan per se when I first left the agency. I didn't have this idea of an artist project. I didn't think I was even going to do an artist project. I was just like, I'll produce for other people. I'll produce, hip hop and pop and maybe it for other artists. But I just need to figure out how to get there. And then, when I was at Icon, a bunch of stuff, which I can go into the DJ competition thing that I ended up in.
I remember that. It was like 7 Up did that.
Yeah, it was, I got a call from this producer that I still good friends with to this day. She was doing this. She's like, hey, I'm helping out with I don't know if she's producing it or like helping cast or whatever, but she's like, hey, there's this DJ competition. You should do it. I told her, I was like, I'm not really a DJ. I haven't done that since college, and it's not really my plan. I appreciate you thinking of me, but it's not really what I want to do. I want to produce for other artists. I want to be a producer. And then she was like, well, if you win, you go play Vegas with Tiesto.
Oh,
And
that's right.
I was like, oh, Tiesto's sick. Like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
fine. Like, I
Okay,
would do that.
I'm a DJ. I'm a DJ. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, why not? I mean, I'll give it a go. And this happened like while I was at Icon. So this is like, I was fresh out. I think it was a summer
Yeah.
after I had left. I mean, it couldn't have been more than 2 months. So needless to say, I don't have music on deck. I don't have like if you listen, I guarantee I could probably find the first song I ever showed the guys when I came into like the interview at Icon the first time, and it was absolute garbage. I should find it and just post it for people to laugh at. But we all start somewhere, So
Yeah.
I entered this thing and I didn't win, but I went very far, and I met Tice as a result of it, and formed a relationship with him. And he was just like so kind and has been such a helpful, powerful force in my career throughout the entire thing. But honestly, the funny thing is, the only reason that Darkheart exists, which I would definitely not have named myself that, I would definitely not have made a lot of music I made early on. I would definitely have planned my artist project differently. But that's kind of Tiesto's fault, because I did this show literally because of him. And then I made it far enough and like was encouraged by him. And when I was in the airport on the way back after losing, which sucked, I did this remix competition for Chucky, DJ Chucky, and I ended up winning that. So I was
wow.
like, oh man, maybe I could do this DJ thing. Like this could be
Yeah.
fun, and I can still produce for other people. Like, Diplo does that. There's plenty of guys that do that. Like I could do that. So that's sort of how this whole thing started. And
Wow.
honestly, it's not, I would encourage people to not do that. Like think really hard before you start your artist project and decide what you really want to do. Because
but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, man. There's something to be said about what I call like building the plane while you fly it. Like I just love that you just threw yourself in the deep end. You're like, I'm going to just start entering DJ contests and remix contests. And like, I don't have a brand. I don't have any idea what I'm doing. And it's almost like this naive, just dive into the deep end and you figure it out. I think it's cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, and now it's like it's worked out, but I mean, it was very tough over the years, just not having that, like building the plane as you fly. Yeah, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. That's why I really like being an agent, because it's very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
I've started businesses and stuff before. I'm always trying stuff. And so this to me it's been such a, I was like, Dark Heart, what a stupid name. But like,
Yeah. So what would you have done differently? You would have chosen a different brand?
let me explain. Let me tell it to you that like I actually like from a branding perspective, my brand is just basically me. Anything you see on social media
Yeah.
is just kind of like me. It's just me having fun and trying to find the best way to show people the music
Yeah.
and the vision that I have in my head. But I'll put it this way in terms of what I would do differently. All of my musical experimentation from the time I got competent at production, and I don't even know that I was competent then, to be honest. It's all been done in public. Like I was releasing that remix came out in like I want to say 2016, even though it got signed in 2015. Dude, I did not know what I was doing production wise, and I knew after that, like I had a lot of work to do, so I had to take a step back. I was like, it was literally I just caught something that remix ended up being good. I don't know how I ended up making it good. I picked some good sounds, but like that, I was by no means ready. I had no ability to replicate the quality that I had on that song over and over and over again. And then all my experimentation in terms of like what genres I wanted to do and stuff, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just like making stuff that I liked. I didn't think I was going to have an artist project. I didn't think it through. I didn't like, and you might say, okay, you were an agent. You probably should have thought about this stuff. But I mean, I came out and these opportunities came across my desk, and then I decided to just like accept it, to say yes as those things were coming along. And so it kind of like started this snowball that just started going. But like I always tell people, and I'm not shy about this, I think the sound that I'm making now, I think it's very obvious what I do. Very obvious the sound I'm going for. But if you go back far enough in my catalog, like you can see basically all my musical experimentation. It's all over the
Yeah.
place. Like
Yeah.
I didn't plan out something cohesive. So, I mean, I guess if I was giving advice to somebody starting off, I would say build up a arsenal of 20, 30 songs. Really think about what you want to put out into the world. I'm putting out into the world what I want now, but there was a lot of stuff that I've put out that wasn't really me. I was just doing it because those were the opportunities that had come before me. And I think I got pretty competent at production pretty fast, which maybe it's a good thing, but it was also kind of a bad thing in retrospect because there's a bunch of songs that I probably definitely would never have put out if I was doing it today. But,
Mm.
there's other artists who are like that. If you look at, I guess, using the Diplo example again, he was making Booty Trap like 6 years ago. So it's like, yeah, there are artists that have that genesis, but it's just weird.
It would be nice if everything just was clean and it just went in a straight line and we knew what the fuck we were doing and we just like did everything right, you know? And for some
Yeah.
people, there's something to be said for that. Like, okay, cool. There's the sound is dialed in, the strategy is dialed in, the brand is dialed in. And like, obviously, I think when we are treating this like a business, it's like, okay, cool. That's going to help the business. I just think there is something so beautiful about the messy artist journey of finding yourself and figuring yourself out. Like I think it's cool that you have all of these songs out and it's like, damn, look at this guy discovering himself. And you had to go through that experience to get to where you are today to really have it more dialed in, but
Yeah.
nobody's path is the same. And it's like I would love to look back on my life and be like, damn, I wish I didn't do a lot of the shit that I did and did things differently and like didn't
Right.
make some of these mistakes and like didn't like go to that one party where that thing happened. It's like, yeah, if I
Yep.
could, but at the same time, all those fucking things make me who I am. You know what I mean? So
You're totally
there's
right. And
something beautiful about that.
every artist kind of I think not every artist, there's some who just like they figure out what they want to do straight from the jump. But
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of artists, I mean, it's almost a meme at this point, the masked DJ side project thing that all these people, and nothing against it. Like, look, sometimes it works. God bless. Everybody's got their own path. Do it. I
Yeah.
certainly could have done a side project and introduced the new music that way. But something to me, I think like it's kind of exactly what you're saying. I'm like, I'm an artist. Like not everything was perfectly planned. I didn't have any guidance. This is just me going off the cuff. And I'm not, you know what? Like I went through my experimentation and I came through it and I have now discovered what I really want to do. So
Yeah.
but I think a lot of artists get to that point. Even if you look like back in like the 90s, and there's a ton of DJs that have side aliases for all the genres they did, like
Yeah.
how many did, Mark Arcardi Payne have, or like Ferry Corsten had a bunch. Basically every OG DJ, Joey Beltram had a bunch. Like they all had other, Wolfgang Gartner had his house alias that nobody knows about back in the day. Most fire sample packs ever, by the way, producers, if you want the plug, if you can
Yeah.
find those Joey Youngman packs, they're fire. But like, yeah, it's definitely like it's a prescient issue that everybody kind of goes through. That's the way I decided to solve for it. Just keep on plowing away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Now you have a very clear vision of your sound and the direction. When did that start shaping up for you? When you're like, this is my lane, this is really what I want to, the sound I want to go for, the lane I want to be in.
I think a couple of years ago, it started shaping up like pandemic time. And I knew I had some changes to make. Obviously, the music business was not in a great way back then. I mean, there's nobody performing. It was really kind of dire, but I sort of started to flesh out this new sound, and then, but not even that new, just like it's still me, but different from anything I had done before. And then it really, as I made more and more and more stuff, I was trying to build up an arsenal. I dipped my toe in with a couple of releases. And then at the beginning of this year, I think is when it really came to like, okay, I have no doubt. Like I can tell you if a song is me or not, like 2 seconds. 2 seconds, I know immediately. I had a surgery this year in the beginning of the year, and my son was born. My first son was born. And, so my son was born, and then a month later, I had this surgery, and I was on painkillers for like, it was like a jaw surgery. So they fractured my skull in a bunch of different places.
Damn.
And like brutal. I looked like I got hit by a Mack truck. So I had obviously had my diet was super clean. I was eating, the liquid diet for a while, no caffeine, no alcohol, no nothing, like nothing, not even sugars really. You just want like protein and stuff to heal. So I had this like massive amount of clarity in the beginning of this year. And I was basically just like recovering and sitting home with my son. And when I got back in the studio and started making stuff, I just started hammering away. I mean, I would say like somewhere in the pandemic is when I started figuring it out. And then the final, like the capstone on all of that and all the experimentation happened the beginning of this year. And now there's like now I'm like cruising. Now I'm like, it's gotten really, really, really fun. Like to a level I've never experienced in music before. And I hope every producer gets to a point where they feel this way, because honestly, it's like, it's genuinely feels great.
How did having a son change things for you?
With trying to avoid the pedantic, generic parenting things that everybody says. I mean, it really gave me like made me want to be the man that I say I am. You know what I mean? And not that I haven't been before, but to a greater degree now, like questioning, I question myself a lot more. Like, is this the right thing to do for my son? And am I being a good role model behaving this way? And, every tiny thing that I do now, I think about it through the lens of how's that going to appear to him. But then it's also just, I don't, just on a logical level, I just don't have any free time anymore. It's like, I don't have room to mess around. I have free time. I don't have any time to goof off. I have a laundry list of stuff I got to do for production, for branding, for shows. I had a show this weekend, the day after Thanksgiving. Like I have all kinds of these obligations that I have to get done. And when, he's not with my sister watches him during the day, or when he's not with my wife or my sister napping, like, I'm with him and I want to be with him is awesome. So it's eliminated a lot of distractions, actually, weirdly enough. And what do they say? The baby comes with everything you need to take care. The baby comes with the money, as some people say, or the baby comes with everything you need to figure out how to be a parent. But I found that to be pretty true. I mean, he's only 10 months old right now, but it's definitely made me a lot more focused because I can't afford not to be.
Yeah.
So
totally, man. Cool. Well, congratulations stepping into fatherhood.
Thanks.
Very exciting. I know you're going to kill it. I'm sure you already are.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. So you've gotten really clear on the sound, the brand. You're talking about really hitting this stride in your production. Tell me more about that. Like, it sounds like you're just in the fucking zone right now.
I think like I sort of started realizing that like the best stuff comes out when I have no expectation. Like it's just my brain just kind of like winging it, and it naturally gravitates towards sounds that I like. And I try to find different ways of getting inspired with like no pressure. If I got nothing going on, I discovered that really after surgery because nobody was hitting me up. because I knew I couldn't do anything really. So it just like cleared the distractions. And I have to find ways now to create space for that more often. I think a lot of artists who have had a song that's done really well or they feel is authentically them would tell you the same thing. I've actually heard other artists say something similar to this, where they're like, the second that I let go of all of the thinking, oh, how is this going to do? Are people going to like this? Is a label going to want to sign this? Like, I don't care anymore about that. Really, I want to put out stuff that I like, that I would play at a show. That because if I like it, it stands to reason someone else will. I think my taste is great, and I think that I've always had that. Like when I was back in, it's so weird because when I was back in college, I would book artists that I loved that people hadn't heard of yet. You know what I mean? And a lot of them went on to be very big artists. And when I would show people, they would eventually get on board. And I'm like, okay, so I've kind of been doing this longer than I've even realized. So I think just going off of a gut instinct is, and like, then you can stand behind something. If it doesn't stream well, who cares? Are you proud of it? I think that's what really matters. And I've put out songs that I'm not proud of. And I've put out songs where I'm like, they didn't do very well from a commercial perspective, but some crush with DJs regardless of that, but like I'm proud of them. I play them. They're my shit. You know what I mean? So
how do you let go of that pressure and that expectation or that tendency to maybe like, follow the trends or try to make something for like a specific label? Like, how do you actually really let go of everything to stay truly authentic to what you think is cool?
Well, first of all, just subjectively speaking, you can't like following trends. Like you can do it. There's people who can make a competent copy of whatever, but just remember, it's just a competent copy at that point. If you want to draw influences, like, great, draw influences. There's like, there's tons of genres that are, nothing is new, quote unquote. Like all these, you didn't invent the 16th bass line or the tech house bass line or, the 909 hats that everyone uses over and over again. Those work, some stuff just works. But if you see something, first of all, it's not going to work. If you try to like, if I go, oh, I'm going to like the Fisher stuff is popping off. I'm going to make stuff like Fisher. Dude, you're just going to end up being a Walmart Fisher. You can't out Fisher. And I see this a lot of melodic techno right now, which I make a lot of melodic techno. Like you see a lot of people trying to be Tail of Us. Dude, you're not going to be Tail of Us. Like we already have Tail of Us. Yeah. Please, like you don't have to wear the 44 label group shirt and do one of the like that's like we have that. I promise you. Like you're just going to be perceived as someone trying to be that. And those guys aren't even making that stuff anymore. Like those guys they're on to the next thing already. They're in the studio with other people. Like, and I think once you've been through like a business cycle or a trend cycle, you can see that doesn't work. Like people, you have to assume your audience is extremely smart. They are extremely smart. It's the same in the movie business. We always would say with a script, if you don't have to show it, then don't show it. If the audience can figure it out without you showing it, like, ooh, the character walked to work that day. Do we need to show it or can we just show him at work? You know what I mean? Like it's that the basic assumption, the reason I bring that up is because the basic assumption is that the audience is smart enough to figure it out. The audience is extremely perceptive in music too. They're very smart. Sometimes it's not even like they consciously pick up on it. They just know what you're doing. People know what you're doing. You know what I mean? And you've A&R'd before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like you've heard stuff and you go, yeah, okay. You knocked off a song from a month ago that we put out. Believe it or not, we don't want a replica of that, 9 replicas of that song. So I think just knowing that in the back of my mind, I'm like, that doesn't work anyways. So you should do something that you like and something that's like distinguishable for you. Mm-hmm. For me, it's not even like knowing that. And again, like some people don't love to hear that and some people get annoyed about it, but it's like, that's true whether or not you want it to be. So there might be a song that you make that's sort of a knockoff of another song and it might actually do okay, but that's not how you're going to build a whole career, you know?
Yeah. And so you've done really well on Spotify, and I'm always curious to ask people like how they've gotten such huge numbers, because that's this sort of enigma, I think, that a lot of artists out there are trying to figure out. Everyone's trying to like get on Spotify playlists and, get actual listens, people to actually listen to their music. It seems like such a hard thing to do. It's such an oversaturated fucking market. I heard a statistic that like 100,000 songs get uploaded to the internet every single day. I don't know how accurate that is, but it's pretty insane. So strategy wise, like how have you been able to get some eyes and ears on your music?
Well, first of all, I've been putting out stuff on Spotify now for, I mean, like I said, 2015. It's a long time. So I've been in the system, which is something that if you're an artist, you have to understand that the first thing you put out, unless you have a massive label like gassing behind it, or you have a rollout plan that with people involved who can get it to the right curators or whatever, unless you have that, it is highly unlikely that you're going to be able to have your first, like if you just independently put something out or whatever, it's not going to fly off the shelves, barring that, which most people don't walk into that. Like it's very hard to get to that unless you have prior connections, whatever. If you're starting from the ground from day one, you need to be consistent on Spotify, because remember, they don't really care about Spotify is ultimately, they are delivering a product to customers. That's what it is. And you are the person generating the product that then goes there by them or Apple or any other DSP. So you have to be on there consistently, unless obviously I'm not talking about the Rolling Stones or someone who's established already. Okay. If you're new, you need to get stuff on there and you need to consistently put it on there, and it needs to consistently be quality. That's a prerequisite to everything. And because the way it used to work on Spotify is and I'm talking 8 years ago, if you got a playlist, so like when I did the remix competition and I ended up on Chucky's label, that's a known label. So curators would listen to that, and it actually got put on a bunch of playlists. So back then the playlist, it got on this playlist called Beast Mode. I don't know if Beast Mode still exists. It was like a workout playlist.
Yeah, I remember that.
This is before Spotify started doing territorial playlisting. So now it's all territory based. So just because you get like a certain playlist doesn't mean the whole world gets that playlist. It means it might be in some areas, and they're not going to tell you which areas necessarily. Some playlists they will tell you, some they won't, but it's sort of opaque.
Is that like by country, or is that even like down to states and like parts of countries? Like,
truthfully, I'm not sure. You should interview someone from Spotify and ask if they can even tell you. I don't know. I'm not going to claim to know. I don't know. Some playlists, like you'll see New Music Friday Thailand, New Music Friday Indonesia, New Music Friday Japan. Obviously, those are countrywide. But now it's like with New Music Friday Dance, for example, which is the dance playlist that you want to be on, one of them that you'd like to be on when you have a release, like that one will go out to certain territories now. And I'm not sure which territories it goes to. Maybe there's a way of finding this out. If I'm wrong, by the way, in the comments, you can correct me, but I don't know how you figure out what territories that's hitting, but I do know it's territory based. So there's that. Well, when I started, it wasn't like that. If you got Beast Mode, it was Beast Mode everywhere. So I have some songs that I did a long time ago that got on those playlists and just racked them up because it was all over the world back then. And I think there was probably less songs getting uploaded to Spotify back then. Maybe that played into it. I'm not quite sure. But at some stage, they broke it into territories.
How did you get on those playlists in the first place?
Well, so the Chucky one that I did was obviously because the curators liked it. They heard it. They knew Chucky's label. Chucky has been around a long, long time. They knew his label and they listened to it, and I got lucky, I would say. But then there's other songs, like just in terms of building up, what is probably more useful for this conversation is to talk about how it is now and then how you can still get plays now. So you obviously want to get that editorial support, of course. Like in the zone that I'm in, it's New Music Friday Dance is a great start, but that's just a week long. And then if that does well, you'll get Operator as well, which is sort of tech housey, or Open Air, which is more melodic techno. Tunnel Vision, more melodic techno, but again, that goes by territory. So you might just be on Tunnel Vision in one area and not another. Yeah. And then there's obviously, if you get to Dance Rising, that's sort of, from what I understand, that's sort of how they audition you for potentially, if it does well on Dance Rising, then maybe it goes to Mint. So there's a way of climbing up that editorial chain.
Yeah. And are these like the labels that are kind of sending them into these, or are you doing that kind of submission process yourself?
Well, the labels, it's their job to get everything on DSPs, and they are talking to the people at the DSPs. And I know some of the people at the DSPs as well, but you know how many artists are talking to these people? They know
Yeah,
they are inundated with
for
music. Like
sure.
I have
Yeah.
nothing but respect for people who work at those companies. It's tough. They have a lot of music that they have to get through. They have to distill it down. I'm not sure how they make all the decisions that they make, but suffice it to say, with what you just said, with hundreds of thousands, 100,000 songs a day, whatever it is every week, how many of those go to Spotify? I don't know, but it's a lot. So they have to distill it down to, like, on New Music Friday Dance, 100 songs every week, 100 songs. New Music Friday, 100 songs every week, week in, week out. Christmas, we still got to do it. We still got to do it so, like, that's a tough job.
Yeah.
So what you really want to do if is build a narrative outside of the DSPs as well. You don't just want to rely on them completely. The way I view it is there's like verticals, there's silos. So one silo would be the DSP growth, which actually, to just touch on that for a quick second, another thing that's extremely powerful is like algorithmic playlists. Like if you get in the algorithm, if your song does well and it gets to enough people, they say that they put it on their playlists. Spotify picks up on that. Their algorithm will pick up on that. It'll start putting you on more discovery, or sorry, more like radio. And then there's also discovery mode, which you can do, which is sort of a deal that you can do with Spotify to promote your song, and it'll end up on more algorithmic playlists. Once you get in the algorithm, that song can perform really strongly for years and years and years and years. So it's important to just keep pushing these things. I've actually noticed as well a crossover from TikTok. I know a lot of people love or hate TikTok, but look, I have experience with a few songs where they've hit on TikTok, not even in a crazy way, just like one or two videos that went kind of viral, and it bumped Spotify. Like
Totally.
pretty good, it bumped Spotify. So that's the cool thing about these external social media platforms is your song has a really long life potentially. I mean, great example of this is Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. Obviously, everyone knows the dude who was on drinking the Faygo or the cranberry juice on the skateboard, basically took that song from being an amazing song from the 70s to being like a viral meme that got a gazillion hits. Or Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush is another example. It got on
Yeah.
Stranger Things, million remakes, whatever, blows up again. So that's an asset for us. But as far as the DSPs go, there's like the editorial, then there's the algorithmic, and then there's third party. Third party would be, there's some really powerful third party playlisting. Obviously, you have like Selected has a massive playlist for house music. Obviously, I'm assuming they're going to prioritize the songs from their own label first. And there's a lot of labels that kind of do a similar thing. Tomorrowland has some very powerful third party playlists. I'm not sure how Spotify feels about those. Obviously, they're okay with them because they let you do them. But it's like you want to have a nice balance, really. You want to try to like find a way to. And look, all of this is solved if the song is really good and it's picking up some steam with DJs, with an
Yeah.
audience on TikTok. It sort of like feeds back into the algorithm and helps it build. So
Yeah.
that's sort of the one silo. And then move into the other silos, which I kind of just touched on. You have, if you're a DJ, you have Beatport, which is obviously indicative of who's playing it out there in the clubs all over the world. And then some of those will feed back into 1001 track lists, which you can then like you pull videos of other DJs playing at cool festivals, whatever. That helps you build a narrative around your story. And then if you can do that, then live shows become easier to get. If you get a Beatport number one, you're probably gonna have show offers. Like
Yeah.
this is the natural progression of things. So I think like it's a combination of these silos that you have to sort of look at as different entities, different like something to go after. Like sometimes I'll have a club record and I know, maybe it's not going to be the most commercially accessible record in the world that's going to do 100 million streams, but I know DJs will really love it. I love it. It works great in my sets and it's like perfect for this moment or that moment. And then, you'll run a Beatport or a track source campaign. You can, if it does well with DJs on the club circuit, you can post those videos. You can start to build a narrative around it, and that helps me. And then also sometimes Spotify will surprise you, and you'll do quite well on there with a song that you were like, I didn't think people were going to get this one, but awesome,
I love that you bring up Beatport and 1001 track list, because I feel like everyone is obviously so focused on social media because we're really focused on building our fan base. Like those are the people that are going to come to the show and buy the tickets, and those are the ones we're engaging with and interacting with. And it's important to not forget that DJ support side. Like I feel like you're actually the first person that I've interviewed that's really bringing this up, and that's such an important piece of the marketing equation, as you said, the silos, right, that are I think really, really important to look at. When you said running a Beatport or a tracklist campaign, what would that look like for you?
Well, I mean, obviously, what the first ingredient to having a successful song on Beatport is, to have proof that it works. If you see a big crowd reaction, or you
Hmm.
see a DJ that's out there crushing it and they're playing the song, it works. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I can see it working. No, not in every scenario, but you get the gist, right? You get the idea. It's worked at this show. I can kind of see how it ties into how a set would look. And that'll come up on 1001. Like there's a lot of people who love seeing new IDs, seeing what different DJs are playing, going through set lists, whatever. And a lot of the people who are doing that are DJs,
Yeah.
obviously. You know what I mean? So they'll look at that and then they'll go like, oh, when's this coming out? And you can hopefully build some hype around the release and get some Beatport support. Then the other thing is like a lot of Beatport support will come from if you're on a label that has a great Beatport presence already, because that means artists are constantly going to that label's page to listen to their Beatport to see what's coming up next. Because, hey, I liked your last 5 releases. I want to hear the next one too. Now you have an actual chance to get in the ears of people. Like I've had situations before where I've sent stuff directly to DJs, didn't get a response on it, comes out, and then the DJ hits me up later and is like, how come you didn't send me this? And they found it. How did I find this on Beatport? Whatever, you didn't send it to me. And I like DM them back. And I'm like, I did send it to you like 4 months ago. But
Yeah.
and if you have live sets and that sort of thing, you can tease IDs. You can go to 1001 and see if it's something they would be into to support on their social pages. Beatport does some live session stuff. So if you got like analog gear, you can plink around in the studio a little bit. And if it's a cool video, something, if you have a singer on it and the singer sing, like you can do things with these platforms that I think are beneficial for all parties. But I mean, there's been Beatport campaigns that have been run purely off of an Instagram going viral. So if you have like, hey, this is a cool way to showcase this particular song. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example of a song that there's the obvious ones, right? There's the obvious Beatport number ones that did really, really well because a video went viral and the artist was directly involved. But I think also like if the essence of the song is something that people can connect with off platform, they'll go seek it out. Or if DJs hear it and they're just like, whoa, I gotta play this thing in my set like
Yeah.
ASAP because it works really well. I think you'll get them to go on Beatport and actively try to download. It doesn't hurt that 1001 is linked to Beatport,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, that's
So,
that's great. I didn't know that 1001 was linked to Beatport, so
well,
that's
they're
really
not that like they will link each song's Beatport. Like
yeah,
you can just click the little cart button and
yeah.
then
So
you can
they
just
just
add it
make
to
it
your
easy
cart.
to buy. Yeah,
Yeah,
very cool.
100%. I mean, it's a great feature.
Well, that's great, man. It's just such a good reminder to really remember to have marketing to DJs as part of your marketing campaign, right? It's not just about pushing this track out and just trying to get your Spotify plays up, but you want to get other people rinsing your tracks, right? You got to get that DJ support, and building those relationships too. I think that's such an important part of it, right? Like once somebody's already supporting your music, they're way more likely to support your music again. So thank
Hmm.
them for supporting your music. Like, make that connection, get in the DMs, have a little conversation, support their music as well. If it fits for your sets too. But this is a relationship driven business. And like, what better way to develop those relationships than through the support of music? So
Well, I would also say for artists out there, if there's a lot of artists listening to this, don't get too caught up about impressing other people. And when you get to a point where you're making stuff that's good, they'll find you. I promise you, they will find you. I am constantly looking. I'm not the biggest artist in the world. I am constantly looking up music, and I've had a lot of the biggest artists in the world reach out to me when you put out something good and you're like, how did you hear this? I have
mm,
no idea how you heard this song,
yeah,
because they're listening. They
yeah,
are. So don't try to, oh, I got to make this song, it's going to sound great, oh, I'm making it for Tiesto, whatever. Just make stuff that's true to you. And if it's really great, and it will get really great if you continue to repeat this process, they will find you.
yeah. Hell yeah, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for sharing the insights, the tips, and really, man, just your fucking story. It is so inspiring to me. It gets me so pumped up just to see people that have really had the courage to like really chase their dream, to go after it, especially when you already got something cool going on. You're already doing something pretty rad, and you just knew deep in your heart, deep in your dark heart, that you had to fucking go for it. And I'm really happy to see that things are paying off for you, man. So great job.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. I think it's really cool what you're doing as well. It's funny to come back after, like, you have years where you're you don't see the other person and you're like, oh shit, you're doing like, wow,
Yeah.
that's dope.
We're still out here, baby. We out here. Ain't going
I love it,
nowhere.
man.
Yeah, man. Well,
Nope.
I can't wait to run into you in person someday. And thanks again for hopping on.
Oh, of course, Nick. Anytime. Thank you for having me.